really welcome here. It's really great. I've got this room in my garden where I counsel people. I've been a counsellor for about 15 years, and they come down my garden and they sit in my room and share their lives with me, and it's a massive privilege. And when I was there this week preparing for today, I always ask the Lord, because I know my story off by heart, right? But I always ask him what I can bring that's special for wherever I'm going to be speaking. And he reminded me of this picture that I have on my wall at home. This is a copy of a huge picture that's up in Holy Trinity, Brompton. And it's the story of the prodigal daughter or son. And it's called The Running Father, who, when he saw his child far off, ran towards his child and scooped them up and took them home. And I brought it here today because I want you to do something while you're listening to me. I want you to think about what it is that God would want you to put down before him. What it is that God would want you to offer back to him. What it is in the back of your mind that you might be holding back and going, oh no, I'm really worthless. Oh no, I'm so ashamed about that. Those sort of things. I want you to think about that. And when you think about that thing, I want you to consider taking a stone or a shell and just laying it there by the cross at Jesus' feet. Because sometimes what happens is when we do something physical with our body, it moves something in our minds and we remember it. And then when we take it back and go, oh, I was such a terrible person back there or whatever, God reminds you, excuse me, I think you laid it down. Because often we walk around like this, don't we? Walk around with this, like that. Big sack of shame and guilt. Big sack of failure on us. And he invites us today to put it down again. Hear the weight of that? I'm sure you put it down loads of times, but today I'm inviting you to put it down again. Now, Nathaniel and I are going to be a little team here. So here's my talk. Sons and daughters of the King, putting on your crowns. Because often we walk around in our lives and forget that we're sons and daughters of the kings. We let our crowns come off and we don't live like sons and daughters of the King, so we definitely don't behave like them. We don't even think about ourselves. I mean, I'm sure that my story is like your story. You might not think it is, but I'm sure it is, because once you were far off, and maybe now you're nearer. And maybe you're not. Maybe you're still far off, or you think you're far off, and today's your opportunity to draw nearer. So, I want you to think about this. God wastes nothing. God wastes nothing. There's nothing in your life that he will not use for his glory. And my story, I hope, will help you to understand that truth, okay? Because he's wasted nothing in my life apart from the things I've held back. And then he still uses them when I eventually let them go. So let's go on to slide 1, please. Now, I'm going to call you Nat, can I? Okay. Nat, okay. So these are our keys. How do we begin to unlock these doors that keep us captive? These words, these things that have been said to us or done to us in our past or are still being done or said to us today. How do we unlock the doors to stop that happening? Can you, on to the next slide then, please. So key 1, let's start with who we have been told we are. So Romans 12. I don't think you can see these slides very well, can you? You can? Don't worry about it, it's fine. So, Romans 12, or 5 rather, didn't I say? Says, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I wasn't, my life, everything's going, I had a little bit of, oh dear, it was a little pause for me to find where I was meant to be. That's good, isn't it? Thank you, Lord. So in Christ, we, though many, form one body. Each member belongs to all the others. So this is where we start. We start with family. We start with me being here and knowing this. You might not like this, but I am your sister. Okay? You are my sisters and brothers. And that's great, isn't it? Because do you know what it means? It means wherever you go in the world, you've got this huge family. And some of them might be really annoying, like families are, aren't they? And some of them may not. But this is about family and helping and supporting each other. So I don't stand up here as some expert. I stand up here as just a normal woman who just happens to tell a story from up here. But I'd just as happily sit in a little circle down there and tell it, quite frankly, just that people want me to stand here and do it. So here we go. Next slide, please. Oh, look. Sweet, isn't she? Butter wouldn't melt. So I am a child of the 50s, which makes me fairly old. And I'm going to be celebrating a birthday this year, which I've decided I'm going back a decade. I refuse to celebrate this birthday, so I'm going to go back a decade. So that's good, I think. So I am a Londoner. Yes. I love London. You know, I was born in a maternity home in Clapham Common, and then I lived in Peckham for the first 5 years of my life. And as you'll find out, all my kind of druggy years were situated in various places around London. And I just love London. I don't know what it is about it, but it's something about it. I love the markets. I love the diversity. I love the whole kind of thing of London. So I feel very at home being here, actually. Although I might look like I'm some sort of, I don't know, middle-class white woman. But I suppose I am in a way, but I'm really not. You can tell by the stuff that comes out of my mouth, I think. So I was born in London, like I said, and then we moved to Kent because at that time, lots of, I think mainly white families were thinking we've got to get our kids out and get them growing up in the countryside and give them a better life. So we moved down south to Tunbridge. And so I grew up in this Christian family. I grew up with my mother saying prayers outside the bedrooms that connect, out in the hallway between our two bedrooms. I'm the eldest of 3 children. We'd say prayers at night. I don't think we said grace, but I grew up in a Christian home. Went to Sunday school on a Sunday afternoon, went to church in the morning, was baptised when I was 17. So I grew up with faith. But my faith wasn't alive and active. It was more head knowledge. You know how you can have that? Just kind of knowledge of God, but you're not hearing him, that kind of thing. So I grew up with like that. Now, my father was a difficult man. He was a bit feisty. I loved him. He's an artist, and I know I really loved him, but we had a very difficult relationship, and he was violent and unpredictable. And for me, I was the eldest child. I had a rescuing spirit within me, which is still very active today, and I would get really mad at the way he spoke to my mother or spoke to me, or just his kind of general attitude. And I think at the age of 14, this kind of age, I was starting to think, you're a little bit of a pain, you're a big hypocrite, and I don't really like you. And it was then I started to have my little view on authority. I used to say that rules were there to be broken. In fact, it wasn't that long ago that I used to say it, because I'm a work in process, right? And so I grew up in this family, and this age, I was part of this group of girls, and we were like these bored middle-class kids. Do you used to have dinner tickets for school? You get given a dinner ticket, yeah? Do you remember them? Yeah. So your parents would buy a whole string of dinner tickets, and you give them in every time you had a meal. Well, we used to flog ours, and then we go out to shop and nick our lunch, and then with the money we got from dinner tickets, we buy our drugs. So we started, I don't look like I'm old enough to smoke drugs, do I? But I was smoking cannabis and, doing that thing like having a bit of amphetamine, a bit of speed and a bit of LSD and just kind of generally messing about. So I'm part of these girls, and all these girls are fairly sexually active. And I thought I was really being good because I went out with a boy for about 18 months before I gave my virginity away. I was 16. And I finally did the thing you did to stay in the gang. I wore a bra and I'd had sex. So that made me part of this gang. I know this is church, but I do talk about things that are a little bit out there. But you know what? We have to talk about this stuff, otherwise we won't deal with it, will we? We're all kind of prim and proper, and I can't be doing that. So I left school and I met a bloke who I'd known for about a week. Now, my relationship with my dad had got very difficult, and in lots of different ways, but one of those ways was violence, and I wasn't protected against it. And I left and moved out with this bloke that I'd been going out with for about a week. And moved in with him, and my father disowned me, and my mother bought me a pressure cooker for my 19th birthday. The original name of this book, that's at the back there, of this book, was The Pressure Cooker. Because for me, pressure cookers spell out love. There's no point in abandoning your child, is there, if they go and lead this kind of wild life. It's much better to love them. And let me tell you, that pressure cooker came with me all through my relationships, through everything I did, raging heroin addicts, I still was the soup queen. I still make soup today. I have a different pressure cooker, but nonetheless, all through my relationships, that pressure cooker came with me, and it was like God gave me care. My mother loved me with care through my addictions. Is that sun really annoying, you lot? Thank you, Lord, for the sunshine. Please don't let them be distracted. Anyway, so I'm 19, I'm moving with this bloke. I do lots of different jobs, cleaning toilets, whatever I can to get the money to go to India. Did the old hippie trail, hitchhiked through Europe, got the bus over to Delhi, spent a bit of time there, came back, got a job, because I've always been a grafter. Now, I'm old enough that I got a job in one of the first ever job centres set up. And I got a job in an office. Now, I'm really bad at stuff like that. Really bad. No clerical assistant in me, but I got this job anyway. Bluffed my way in. And the photographer came in and said, was doing photographs to advertise the job centre. So they asked me to stand in. I used to have jobs on these stacks like this, and you could flick through them. Stand in, do a little pose like this. To advertise the job centre. So I did that. And then I thought, I know what'll get me out this office. I'll ask him if he can take some photographs of me. So I did. I got to stand on it. So I did, right? So I borrowed a wig, because I had all my hair hacked off to go to India, so I looked more like a boy, because a lot of the girls that were going out there were going out with their long, luscious hair and no bras and whatever, and waving it all about, and it was really upsetting the Muslim community. So I wasn't really like that baggy T-shirt and cropped hair. And so I borrowed a wig like this, one of these ones, girls, right? Like a Playmobil thing, you stick it on your head, it doesn't move, it's just got that thing. Nylon, really, really nylon. So I borrowed that, and I went out with this bloke who said he'd take some photos. We went out and sat on a gate in this field with my cheesecloth skirt on and my little top ready for the photos. He went, well, take your top off then. Take your top off. Do you know what? I did. I don't know why he asked me to do that, because when I look back, I was quite beautiful. Not that I thought it, but I look back now and think, beauty's wasted on the youth, don't you? It's true. It is. They don't get it. They think, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I'm too this, I'm too that. But they forget it's going to disappear and you end up like this, there. I know, it's true, isn't it? I was 19, slim, lovely, but I didn't think I was, so I took my top off. So I ended up with this portfolio full of topless pictures. So I go up to this agent in London, walk in, he's on the phone. You've heard this, I think, before, but I walked in, he's on the phone, and he's on the phone, yeah, I walk in, yeah. This girl has just walked in with an incredibly long neck. I'm like, what? Yeah. And he puts the phone down, and he looks from my portfolio and says, okay, I'm going to take you on, and I'd like you to go and see the photographer. So before I knew it, I literally got to London, got sent out to this photographer immediately, the main photographer of the Sun page, of the Sun newspaper called Beverly Goodway, a bloke called Beverly. But who would call their son Beverly? No, there isn't someone called Beverly here, is there, who's male? God, that was close. Like Vivian. Do you have boys called Vivian? Is it boys? I know, it's a bit weird. I think it's a bit weird, but maybe I'm very judgmental. Anyway, so I go there, and before I know it, I'm all over the photo, all over the papers. Now, the thing is, I've left home. My father works in advertising, and they don't know that I'm in the paper. And they go to church. Eek. And what happened was my granddad, who lived from Camberwell, rang him up and went, oi, Sue's in the paper. My mother goes, oh, that's lovely. He went, yeah, on page 3. And my poor mum, my granddad was this bloke who used to have I loved him so much. He had a silk scarf, a black kind of Crombie jacket, and he used to pour his tea into his saucer in a flat cap and drink it. Oh, I loved him so much. Oh, and but he was proud as punch. And my mother was mortified. And my siblings, who were 5 and 3 years younger than me, were still in school. I think they were pretty mortified. And my father, well, and the church actually disowned me. And my mother tells me they disowned me because I became the force's mascot. I've got a picture of me sitting on some tank somewhere with no clothes on, or something weird like that. A lot of the things I did, don't really remember now. And it was a bit complicated because it's hard to be a church member. You have to be a member, right? So you can vote in the laws. In the Baptist church, have to do those things. And I wasn't going to members' meetings, and I'd walked away, and I was living with somebody. And it's very hard, I think, for sometimes Christians who are a little bit middle class or who have not experienced life that's difficult, to be able to cross the road to be with somebody who has experienced life. I don't know about you, I bet there's characters in the Bible that you relate to a lot. And I've got a few, and they're always the naughty ones, the Samaritan woman, Mary Magdalene, all those women who felt so unworthy. And do you know what? The thing about those unworthy women is that Jesus draws near to them. And I just love that. Don't you just love that he does that for us? And for you guys as well. He does it for you. He does it for the Lazarus. He does it for those who, the tax collectors. He does it for those who think they're worthless. And he said, come to me. So I'm all over the paper. Do you know, I have to tell you, I didn't know the impact it had on my family until my book came out. I think I'd moved so far away from them, was living with so many different people, I just didn't know. And when my book came out, the truth hit the fan a little bit for me. So I was living with this bloke. I was doing the topless work, and I met a photographer, and he said to me, Susie, you need to stop doing the topless work. Because I wasn't just doing page 3, I was doing all these magazines, and I don't mean things like Playboy, but nonetheless risque stuff, and all over Europe. And he said, change your agent. So I changed my agent, and before I knew it, I snapped up. So, I'm the original Impulse Girl commercials, De Beers Diamonds, Harmony Hairspray. I've done all these commercials all over the world, worked with loads of famous people and done all those things. So I was living, by all intents and purposes, I looked like I had it sorted. I'm like 24, 25, and I'm looking good, I'm earning money, I'm living in town in a flat. But nobody knows that this is this life, but over here, there's this other life going on. There's this mask that I wear from here, and here the mask is stripped off, and I am promiscuous from my first trip to the Maldives Islands when I was still doing topless work. When I slept with a male model there, I'm promiscuous. I was giving my body away left, right and centre all through that time. Never faithful to anybody. And I was going from relationship to relationship. I'd trade them in for another model, these blokes, every 2 years roughly, because they'd always let me down. I'd always find out they were just what I expected, and I wasn't prepared to put up with it. I think I'd grown up with, a man who I thought didn't respect me and respect my mother, and I wasn't prepared to put up with it for myself. But what I didn't realise is as I was giving my body away that I wasn't respecting myself. Do you want to just click through a couple of slides? These are some modelling pictures. I just put them in so you can have a look. This is the book cover. If you keep going, this is the picture. When I lived in Japan, it was the only time I'd come off drugs. I came off heroin for a little bit of time, and I lived in Japan for about 6 months. Keep going. This is the cover of the ABC album, Lexicon of Love. So that's me there. I'm sick thin. I am a heroin addict at that point. And on the night before I went and had that shot done, a friend of mine who was also a drug addict had driven his motorbike under a skip lorry and died. And I look, you can't see there, but my eyes are really seriously puffed up because I've been crying all night. Keep going. So that's an ad for Avon, I think. And I did a lot of things with my body, as in leg work and things like that, and that's a picture of what was taken in Portugal. Is there any more? Okay. So there you go. That's the kind of stuff I was at. So I was doing all that stuff. It looks like I'm really cool, doesn't it? It looks like I've got it sorted. But the truth is I haven't. And finally, relationship after relationship, drug after drug, living in Kentish Town, living in Putney, living in Amsterdam, living in various places, I find myself in Deptford, living with my dealer. I am scraping barbs off needles. Anybody here a nurse? Well, you do not reuse needles. I won't ask if anybody here is an addict or has used drugs, but you do not scrape the little metal things off needles and renew them. We were a state. We were doing that. We were emptying out cigarette butts and remaking new cigarettes. We were boiling up the cotton wool that you pull your heroin through. In fact, it makes me feel a bit sick talking about it, and reusing that. We were doing all those things in order to survive. I was a serious shoplifter. I was stealing all the time for my drugs. I had this ring. I had a pearl ring that my grandfather had given me. It belongs to my grandmother. And I gave it to a dealer one night and got a pathetic bag of heroin from it because my gyro, my unemployment benefit, because by that time my work's dried out, I'm unemployed, right? My money had run out. And I gave it to them overnight, and that night the police raided them and I never saw that ring again. I gave away loads of stuff. And finally, I fall pregnant with this guy who's my dealer in Deptford. And because I'm this nice middle-class girl, we decide we better get married. So we make plans for this wedding, which I don't really remember much about. And a month before I'm due to get married, I lose the baby. Because my body wasn't a safe place for a baby to grow, was it? In fact, I lost a few babies that way. And I truly believe that I will meet them in heaven. I really believe that I will see those children face to face and that they're okay now. But it was almost like it was too late to cancel the wedding. My daughter is getting married in May, and I will always be saying to her, make sure that you can change your mind at any time. Not because I'm not happy for her, I am, but I'll never want her the day before to say she can't cancel it. You know what I mean? Because I went through with this wedding, and I walked up the aisle, having gone into the toilet and chopped up a line of heroin on the toilet cistern, snorted it up in my wedding dress. My friend told me the other day that she went out and cleared up after me. I didn't even know that. I remember walking down the aisle and going, Lord, please forgive me, and standing there and taking my vows. The only thing I remember apart from the heroin was my veil falling off and taking these vows and saying, I'm sorry as I take them. 12 days later, I'm unfaithful on the floor of my flat in Deptford with somebody else who's not my husband for some heroin. A few months later, finds me in Woolwich, in Thamesmead, in a dealer's flat, without any money, and him saying to me, well, if you can find a vein in my body, you can have some gear. And I remember him sitting on his bed without a top on and rummaging around on his chest to find a place where I could inject him with heroin to get the heroin I needed. And I thought, you might as well be a prostitute. You might as well be a prostitute. So I went to my friend's house, and I would go there every now and then because I thought, surely I can beat this thing. If I could just give it up for a couple of days, then I'd be okay and go back on it, couldn't I? Because then it wouldn't have a grip on me. Such rubbish, really such rubbish. And I remember sitting there one day, I was on her bed, and there was this Bible on a bookshelf, and I pulled this Bible down, opened it up, and did one of these things. Do you ever do this? And read what it says. Pick a mix. You go in and you see what the Lord says, and he says, they went and smoked the Philistines. You go, no, not that one. You go for another one until you get what you want to hear, right? Don't we do that? It's not a holy horoscope. It's a holy word of God. And I read this thing, and I started to read, and the room turned white. God's presence. Amazing. God's presence. And I read this. It says, blessed is the one whose sins are forgiven, whose sins are covered. Blessed is the one whose sin the Lord does not count against them, and in whose spirit is no deceit. And as I carried on reading, I thought, this is my life. It says, when I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. That's how I felt every time I tried to give up heroin. For day and night your hand was heavy on me, and my strength was sapped, as in the heat of summer. And then I acknowledged my sin to you, and I said, I will not cover up my iniquity. I will confess my sins to the Lord, and you forgave my sin. And it goes on, it says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. Do not be like a horse or mule that needs bit or bridle to control them. So I was like, okay, Lord, okay, here you go. And there was that kind of metaphorical God took my hand. And that was that. So I went out. I told my friend, who wasn't a Christian, by the way. I said to her what had happened. She went, oh, Suze. She's a real heavy smoker, Londoner. Oh, Suze, if I could take away the pain, you could just deal with the head stuff. Because addiction's about a lot in the head, as well as the physical symptoms, right? So never say things like that in front of God, because that's what happened. She got all the withdrawals. I got none. I never took heroin again. Now, you're not responding to that. You're either asleep from your full breakfast or it's slowly landing. Imagine, right? I cannot get free of heroin. I am an injecting addict. And God freed me in that second from heroin. Now, that is remarkable, even if you're not going, yay. It is. It's okay. You don't have to go, yeah. Just checking that you're awake, though, you know. That's the thing. And tell you something else, right? The Bible that I pulled off the bookcase was a Bible I had given her. Because even in the midst of my addiction, I'm an evangelist. I'm giving out a Bible. And that Bible saved me. Sometimes the things we do for other people save us. Don't they? They so do. I love that. And we don't do it, I'm going to do this so you bless me, Lord. But it says somewhere in Deuteronomy, blessings follow obedience. Sometimes it's just about, we just got to do this thing, haven't we? We must do what he says. So, let's have can I see the next slide? Oh, hey. I love this picture. So I'm a therapist, right, of 15 years. I do a lot of work with inner children. We all have inner children, all you grown-ups, not just those little kids that we can hear playing. We have inner children. We have views on ourselves, on how we live and what we like. We may see ourselves as not intelligent. We may have failed all our exams. We may have mental illness. We may be blamed or think we're blamed for a family breakdown. We may be ignored, or we may be adopted. We may have been abused. But whatever the situation, all these inner children within us hold those things. But Christ came and he says to your inner children who hold your wounds, I waste nothing. I waste nothing. Let me have it all. Remember these stones and shells. Keep it in the back of your mind what he might want you to give up today. Something in your identity maybe that you've been holding on to for a very long time. He's saying, please give up today. Key 3. Trapdoor. So I'm free of heroin. Yay. But I'm not free of everything else. I'm free of heroin, but I'm not quite free of promiscuity. I'm not quite free of smoking cannabis and cigarettes. So I moved down to Tunbridge Wells. I leave my husband. I moved down to Tunbridge Wells. I meet another bloke. I fall pregnant, like you do. And this time, I am not getting rid of this baby. I was on Women's Hour earlier last year now. And it was about women whose partner hadn't left them when they got pregnant quickly or by mistake, let's say. And this guy didn't leave me. And I said to him, what did you do? He went, well, I went down the pub, I drank a bottle of whiskey and decided to do the right thing. But I was keeping that baby whatever, because I was by then not a heroin addict. So the baby lived. She's called Bonnie. And but I'm still puffing dope. I'm still smoking drugs. I'm still smoking cigarettes. My friend says she remembers me being fully pregnant, leaning into this little Fiat car I have with a joint hanging out my face. I'm like, not in a million years would I do that now. But then that's what I was doing. And I remember talking to God about it because this bloke did not want to marry me. He didn't want to marry anybody. He wasn't planning on becoming a father. He was just honourable and stayed. So I said to God, look, I just want to get married. And God said to me, well, you better stop smoking because you're not going to marry you all the time you're smoking drugs and stuff. So I gave up cigarettes in the January. I gave up cannabis in the April, and I got married in the August. That was 26 years ago. Yay. I've been faithful for 28 years. Now that does deserve a clap, doesn't it? It's the only man. And I've been with David. He wasn't a Christian. But over the years, I prayed him into the kingdom. Don't give up, girls, boys. I prayed him in, and now he does the sound in church. And he says, it's the only time he can turn me down. Because I sing and all that stuff, and he likes to turn me down. Or puts this really annoying echo on my voice. Or voice, does all that. Really, really annoying. But so it's fantastic. And the thing about this success thing is that sometimes when we're successful, when we think everything's sorted, we're not seeking God, are we? We forget. Because we don't need him. We're going, oh, God, help. We forget. We need him, even in those times. So we need to be continuing to ask God what he wants for us, even when things are going really well. The next key, please. Are you happy? What is happiness? It's certainly not laughing all the time. It's not about carrying a baby to term and looking into her eyes, but being afraid the father might leave. It's about letting God into the mundane in our lives. It's about letting the fruit of the Spirit grow. It's not about that kind of initial buzz or that high that you get. It's about in the everyday walking, in the everyday encounters we have, in the everyday going to life, whether it's stacking shelves or whether it's working in an office or whether it's being a nurse or whether it's being a mum or whether it's caring for other people. Whatever it is about inviting God into those places. So my life now, is it sorted? Well, not entirely. Let's have a look at this next slide. It is for freedom that Christ set you free. Stand firm then, no longer burdened under a yoke of slavery. When I learnt that verse, had this verse given to me a while back, it says a yoke of slavery, anything that enslaves you, anything. Pornography, drugs, alcohol, domestic abuse, things from your past, anything, stand firm then, no longer burdened under a yoke of slavery. God is about bringing freedom, and he's about bringing freedom to you today. Not just for the past stuff, but for today, for the things of today. So hold that in your mind. Next slide, please. Advice from a tree. This was given to me by a client I'd worked with for about a year. I love my clients. This client came and she was somebody who was referred by where she worked. So she had a certain amount of sessions paid for. Then she came in the January and she said, I can't come anymore because I can't pay myself. And I said, you have to. She was raped when she was 6. And I said, you have to come. I don't care. Don't pay. Come anyway. And I don't say that to say I'm great, because it's not about that. But what strikes me about her is that she was absolutely overwhelmed by that one thing. Like I had something to gain from it. She's like, but why would you do that? Why would you want to? And I want to care for your 6-year-old, your inner child. She needs to know she's not to blame. And she's really helped me because now she's really well. She's great. And life's really good for her. But she sent me some of this stuff, and I thought, it is astounding. She's not a Christian. She called me her Christian therapist. She's had a few. But I was her Christian therapist, and I said, tell me about our work. She said, well, you've got this wrecking ball. You know those big metal balls on chains? They smash buildings. She said, you've got this Christian wrecking ball? I'm like, what? She said, no, what you do is you smash down my boundaries so you can get to me. And I was like, wow, it sounds really like I'm really violent. She said, no, it's not like that. But it's just my boundaries are so built up. My walls are so built up to protect me that I don't let anyone in. It's battling through. And you lovely ladies and men, you have got people who really need you to love through the wall. Through the wall. This is an area, I don't know exactly what this area is like, but I imagine in this area there's loads of addiction. I imagine in this area there's loads of domestic abuse. I imagine in this area there's lots of pornography addiction. I imagine there's prostitutes. I imagine there's those who are very well presented who have very rubbish lives underneath. And it's our job to ask God to give us the spirit of discernment so we can look in and understand what is going on, because God wastes nothing. He says in Joel, it says, we cling to worthless idols that forfeit the grace that could be ours. We cling to things that we think are so great, but what they do is they forfeit grace. They kind of get in the way of grace. And for me, my story is that God called me from this place, and I said, have it all. In Romans 12, it says, offer your bodies as living sacrifice. This is your reasonable act of worship. This book exists because I walked into work one day, a Christian charity, and somebody told me they'd found me. And I was like, yay, here I am. She went, no, on the internet with no clothes on. My images are on the internet from the age of 19. Pictures I've never seen before. Pictures that are attached to hardcore porn sites. That I am working with those clients who are addicted to that porn. and my pictures are on there. Now, I had a choice at that time. It was sink under the condemnation, because I omitted to tell you that I have a record for my heroin addiction. Sink under that and let that join my list of sins, or do something about it. And someone said to me, well, why don't you write about it? So I wrote this book. And God is using this book, remarkably. He's using my story. So imagine, what he's using is me being naked on the internet to challenge men, mainly, about addiction to pornography. Can you believe it? I actually get invited to go and speak to groups of men, and my qualification is naked on the internet. That's bizarre, don't you think? God wastes nothing. Nothing. You can offer your naked body to him. He'll use that. You can offer your failed marriage to him. He'll use that. You can offer your didn't pass my exams to him. He'll use that. You can offer your I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too fat, I'm too thin. Whatever it is, you can offer it to him and he will use it. He just says, bring it to me. Bring it to me. Don't forget. Bring it to him. Whatever it is, whatever you're offering, however big, however small. That widow's mite thing. You know, story I learnt when I was a little girl. Widow's mite. Use it. Let him have it. Let's have a look. Oh, can you just go back? Sorry. So, stand tall and proud. Go out on a limb. Remember your roots. Drink plenty of water. Be content with your own natural beauty and enjoy the view. Here we go, next one. Oh, what happened here then? Is there another slide? There should be 2 slides. Okay, this one here, right? I found this when my dad died 2 years ago, and I found this in his room, a pack of photographs. That is the girl who chopped up heroin on a toilet cistern in a wedding dress. There she is. You can't see it very well here, but I'm so thin. I'm so thin. There she is. And is the next one a wedding? Okay, can you put that up? And there she is, healed of her addiction, married, mother now to 4 children, glowing, there they are, glowing with health and vitality. Now, before I end, I don't want to forget any of the little bits I wanted to tell you, which I've just gone and done now. Go back to that picture. It helped me to remember what I was going to tell you. Okay, I was going to tell you this. I have 4 children, right? I am an ex-addict. The last child I had is my adopted child. When I was pregnant with my 3rd daughter, Holly, I thought she was a boy because God had told me my husband would have a son. So I'm walking around going, Max. That's what I was going to call her. Max, oh, Max. Talking to my baby, you know, like you do when you're pregnant. Give birth to Holly, and I'm going, oh, sorry, Holly, I thought you were Max. What is going on? Not hearing you right, Lord. 2 years later, a newspaper comes to our door. It says, children in need of love. Children of drug addicts and alcoholics. And I thought, yeah, that's what we could do that. We could adopt. Because I can tell them all about you, Lord. I can tell this child why their mother was giving them up, what it's like to be an addict. So basically, we got given this boy, 11 months old. When I rung up, I was like, well, you're not going to give me a child. I'm nearly 40 and da-da-da. But here we have this son, my son Lewis. Has lots of issues. He's gay. He has a cleft palate. But I love him. We have a challenging relationship, he and I. But God chose me to be his mum. I have to keep remembering that. God chose me to be his mother. God will repay the years the locusts have eaten. I was saying that verse to somebody. Can't remember who it was. He will repay those years, right, that the locusts have eaten, and he will restore you. He will restore you. My son's middle name is Joel for that very reason, because that's in the book of Joel. He will restore you. Remember that ring I told you that I'd given away for heroin? On my 40th birthday, my mother gave me a little ring box, and I opened it up, and inside was this. See that? That is exactly the same as the ring that I'd given away. Now, let me tell you, it was her mother's ring. She knew nothing about it. I was so ashamed. I've never told her. I nearly collapsed when she gave me that, because it was like God saying, Susie, stop working so hard to try and earn my salvation. You've got it already. You have it already. You have it already. It's not about how good we are, it's about how loved we are. And when we live as how loved we are, then we will love others, and then they will see God's light shining in us, won't they? So just to wind this up a bit, I'm going to end. This is the other book that's up there. This book is written because I grew up with domestic abuse. I work with a lot of women who are involved in domestic abuse, and some men as well, counselling them. And this book is about a woman who grew up with domestic abuse as a child, and it affects how she lives as an adult. It's not particularly graphic as a novel. Hopefully it brings hope. I'd love it if you would be able to afford to buy it, because it's about changing the way we think. And the other thing I want to encourage you with today is up there. There are some of these leaflets. It's for a project called The Naked Truth. The statistics for pornographic addiction are quite high in the church, as are the stats for domestic abuse, 1 in 4. And we need to be able to take a stand, because the enemy is taking hold of sex and making it his. He's taken hold of it, and he's changing the minds of our young people as they get more and more addicted to the image rather than the flesh and blood woman that they want to marry. It's about that, and it's wrecking marriages. I'm working with loads of marriages, so it's absolutely wrecking. So this up there, there's contact details. It's an online resource. Take it. You can pretend it's someone else, it's for you. It doesn't matter. No one's looking, but I really encourage you to get on board with this charity. There's forms there for giving for them, but that's not what I'm doing, why I'm talking to you about this. I'm talking to you about it because we need to reclaim our minds. We have the mind of Christ. It says, we demolish arguments and pretensions that set themselves up against the will of God, and we take captive every thought, right? We have to take captive actively every thought. We can't go, oh yeah, fluffy fluff. We can't do that. We've got to get out, put the sword of the Spirit. We've got to really kind of make proper effort to do it. So there's some leaflets there. Please take them, give them to your friends, whatever. It's a resource called Click to Kick. And the other thing, I'd love you to pray for me as I carry on doing this stuff that I'm doing here. I'd love you to pray, because I'm an ambassador now for a charity called Restored, which is going and speaking to churches about domestic abuse and changing cultures. And I'm really praying that book at Therapy's End will be used as a resource for them. It's not about success. It's about opening the eyes and making people understand. You know, women go through many, 30 plus beatings before they leave men who abuse them. And often the catalyst for change is when their kids get started on. That book is to help people understand that stuff without reading statistics, really. It's not a difficult read, it's an easy read. So I hope it's helped you. I want you to think about this thing here. When I lugged these stones here, I really thought God wanted to use this. Now, it might be for one person, but I do believe that is for somebody here to lay down something. It can be, I give you something great. It doesn't have to be I give you something bad. It can be I give you something great. But I just encourage you to think about what it is that God is nudging at you about on what I've said today, and to place something before him, and don't pick it up again. I'll move it out the way at the end. Don't pick it up again. Let him have it. I think I'm about done. Don't give up praying for your prodigals. Only one of my children goes to church at the minute. Don't give up praying for your prodigals. Carry on witnessing and carry on being that gentle, loving you. Don't give up bringing them before God. Sometimes when we get really stressed, we can end up not wanting to pray. Make sure you get your errands around you who are going to hold up your hands when you can't do it yourself. That's what family's for, right? So I'm going to end. I'm just going to pray for you, if that's okay, before I end. I have no idea how long I spoke. Sorry. So let's just pray. Father, thank you for East Hill Baptist family. Thank you that you love them. Thank you that there's no one in this room that you do not know intimately and who you do not love with an amazing, special love. Thank you for the children as they play. Thank you for those who prepped up our breakfast and made that effort to offer it to us. Thank you for the pastor and his wife and all those who serve. Thank you for Len for inviting me. I pray your blessing on this family. May this church fill with broken people. May all these pots that are so cracked that they let in the light, may they shine out with your glory, Lord. May the broken help the broken. May the broken help the well. Father, would you anoint this family with the power of your love? May they shine here in Wandsworth. In your precious name we pray, Lord. Amen.